In this video, we're going to put you right there on the surface of the moon when NASA's lunar lander touches down in the near future. You'll get to experience what it feels like to land in the fine lunar regolith, or moon dust. And you will soon understand why that seemingly simple task could be one of the most difficult things that these spacecraft will have to endure. So sit back, relax, fasten your seatbelts, and let's take off for the moon. After many days traveling through space, your ship begins its descent towards the lunar surface. Soon you can see the surface features getting larger and larger outside your window. At first, they look like vast rolling sand dunes. But as you continue falling, you notice something strange. There are no details on the surface. No rocks, boulders, or craters are visible. It all looks deceptively smooth. It almost looks like landing on water. Then suddenly you pass through a thin layer of atmosphere and the gravity drops. Your ship begins to shake violently as the retro rockets fire to slow you down before touching down. You're almost there. And just before touchdown, you see the surface rise up to meet you. A plume of dust shoots up and engulfs the lander. Then silence. Your ship has touched down on the moon. But if you're expecting to see a cloud of dust billowing out around your ship, you might be disappointed. That's because there is no dust. In fact, there is so little atmosphere on the moon that nothing can really move around. So the dust doesn't billow out around the ship at all. Instead, it stays stuck to the surface. Congratulations, you survived the landing. Now the real work begins. You open the hatch and step out onto the lunar surface. You take a small step forward and feel the crunch of your boot sinking into the dust. This is it. You're finally on the moon. But wait a minute. Where's the dirt? If you were expecting a gritty, sandy material, you might be confused. Where are the nice round grains? All you see is a dusty haze. And that's because the surface isn't just dirt at all. It's a mixture of everything. Regolith is basically the top layer of any planetary body that has been altered by weathering and is loose enough to be moved by some kind of force, such as wind or water. On Earth, we tend to think of regolith as just soil, but that's not really the case. For example, the surface of the moon is covered in a layer of broken-up rock called regolith. The material is incredibly hard and jagged due to millions of years of meteorite impacts. One of the biggest challenges facing future lunar explorers is understanding how this material behaves. For example, how does it react to heat and cold? How does it conduct electricity? And most importantly, how will it affect our equipment? To make matters worse, the lunar regolith is incredibly abrasive. That means that even small particles can cause significant damage to equipment. Imagine trying to operate a piece of machinery while wearing sandpaper gloves. It would be nearly impossible. NASA and other organizations are planning more lunar missions than ever before. But in order to avoid catastrophic issues with real moon dust, they need to test their equipment on lunar simulants, which are substances that mimic the properties of real moon dust. But the trouble is, finding the perfect simulant isn't easy. That's because the lunar regolith is vastly different from Earth soil. In fact, it's so different that scientists are still trying to figure it out. There are many companies around the world making lunar simulants, but the problem is each of them is made differently, and each produces different results. So, NASA and other organizations are often left with materials that don't accurately represent real lunar regolith. But there's one company that is changing all of that. It's called Exolith Lab, and they may be the key to unlocking the secrets of the moon. Exolith Lab is a company based in New Hampshire that specializes in creating realistic simulants of extraterrestrial materials. They've developed a proprietary process that allows them to create materials that closely match the properties of real lunar regolith. Their materials are so realistic that they've become the go-to supplier for NASA and other organizations. But the demand for lunar simulants is growing rapidly. NASA and other organizations are planning more lunar missions than ever before, and each one will require tons of simulant. That means that Exolith Lab is facing a huge challenge. They need to ramp up their production quickly in order to meet demand. Luckily, they're up to the task. At their facility in New Hampshire, Exolith Lab is busy producing lunar simulants for use in upcoming missions. Their process starts with creating a mixture of minerals that closely matches the composition of lunar regolith. The minerals are then ground into a fine powder and mixed together to create a realistic-looking material. The final product is so realistic that it can be difficult to distinguish it from actual moon dust. But creating a realistic-looking material is only half the battle. The real challenge is creating a material that behaves like real lunar regolith. That's why Exolith Lab conducts extensive testing on their materials. They use a variety of tests to evaluate the properties of their simulants, such as thermal conductivity, electrical conductivity, and abrasive properties. They also test the material's ability to adhere to various surfaces. That's important because it simulates the way that dust would accumulate on spacecraft during lunar missions. So far, their tests have shown that their simulants perform very well. In fact, their materials have been used in a number of high-profile missions, including the Artemis 3 mission. That's the mission that will land the first woman and the next man on the moon. The success of these missions is a testament to the quality of Exolith Lab's products. But the company isn't resting on its laurels. They're constantly working to improve their materials and processes. One of the ways they do that is by working closely with NASA. The space agency often provides Exolith Lab with samples of real lunar regolith to test against. That way, the company can make sure that their simulants are as accurate as possible. But Exolith Lab isn't just working on improving the quality of their materials. They're also working on making them more available. The company has seen a huge increase in demand for lunar simulants in recent years. And that's not surprising given the renewed interest in the moon. NASA and other organizations are planning more lunar missions than ever before, and each one will require tons of simulant. To meet this demand, Exolith Lab has expanded its production facilities. The company has invested in new equipment and hired additional staff. They're also exploring new ways to produce lunar simulants more efficiently. That's important because the cost of simulants is a major barrier to entry for many organizations. Exolith Lab is working to change that by making their materials as affordable as possible. The company's efforts are paying off. In recent years, they've been able to supply simulants for a wide range of missions at a variety of price points. For example, they recently supplied simulants for a mission to Mars. The simulants were used to test the rover's ability to navigate Martian terrain. Exolith Lab was able to provide the simulants at a competitive price point, which was important for the mission's budget. Another example is a mission to the moon. The simulants were used to test the lander's ability to support human activity. Again, Exolith Lab was able to provide the simulants at a competitive price point. The future of lunar exploration is bright. In the coming years, NASA and other organizations will launch dozens of missions to the moon. These missions will explore the moon's surface, its atmosphere, and its interior. They will search for water, minerals, and other resources that could be used to support human life on the moon. As lunar exploration ramps up, the demand for lunar simulants will grow. That's where Exolith Lab comes in. The company is poised to become the leading provider of lunar simulants for the global space industry. Their realistic materials, competitive pricing, and commitment to customer service make them the ideal partner for lunar exploration. So the next time you see a news story about a new lunar mission, chances are Exolith Lab played a role in making it happen. Because as we venture back to the moon, we'll need more than just rockets and spacecraft. We'll need a whole new understanding of how the lunar regolith works. And companies like Exolith Lab are leading the way.